anime online or anime on the internet, which is a topic that I think is probably about as timely as it's ever been. Many of you in this room, I'm sure, encountered anime at one time or another online instead of on DVD or, God forbid, on VHS or television, which it actually was once on, usually on what was called UHF back in the Stone Ages. But now a lot of it is online. You're finding it on the internet. My name is Roland Kelts. I'm the author of this book, which is called JapanAmerica: How Japanese Pop Culture Has Invaded the US. This book was written a number of years ago now, but it's been updated. And since some of you have asked, it is available downstairs in the dealer's room at Peter S. Beagle's booth. Peter S. Beagle is an amazing writer of The Last Unicorn, as many of you know. And they are selling copies there, and they're signed, and I will be signing some of them after this panel downstairs. So if you're interested. A big part of this book, when I was writing it, was discovering that anime, as it appeared outside of Japan at the time, was appearing to people on the internet, and a lot of it was free, which meant that most of the people who made the animation, the creators, the producers, etc., were not receiving pennies or yen for their efforts when the work went overseas, went abroad. I had an extraordinary experience at a con, not this one, but a nearby con, actually, some years ago, in which I was moderating a panel of industry folks, particularly distributors of anime in the US. And it was the Q&A session, and a very young boy near the back of the room raised his hand and said, "I just wonder what the panelists think of Crunchyroll." That was what he asked. And the woman sitting next to me, who was working for one of the big distributors in the US, it was like her hair caught on fire. She was absolutely enraged. And she said to him, like a school teacher, "If I hear that word mentioned again in this room, I will shoot you down." She said, "You people are destroying the very people who are giving you pleasure. The very people who are providing your entertainment, you are destroying them by using what used to be called fansites. Sites put up by fans, usually delivering freebies of various quality, etc., that people were downloading largely overseas. Fan sites started to take off in Japan after a while as well. But at that time, they were mostly in English and for global audiences. Well, that particular scenario changed a lot. On the one hand, a lot of distributors of physical anime products disappeared, collapsed, went bankrupt. On the other hand, the position of anime online on the internet has shifted from one of pure illegality or piracy to one of a growing legitimacy. I'm here today, very, very fortunate to be here, first of all, at Otakon for its 20th anniversary, and very happy to see all of you here. Yeah, 20 years, that's pretty amazing for any kind of convention. But I'm also lucky because a couple of good friends and brilliant guys are with me today. You want to introduce yourself? What did I say? The publisher of Anime News Network, right, Chris?
That works.
Okay, and one of the managers at Crunchyroll.com, which is now a licensee of anime titles from Japan, and is now delivering profits back to the producers and the creators. So first I'm going to open the floor to these gentlemen, since they were kind enough to join me, to talk a little bit about how anime on the internet has changed over the past, 5 to 10 years or so, how it has evolved, how the networks have evolved, how the fan base has evolved, and how, in some ways, the fan base has been, I think you could say, educated about anime on the internet. So, Chris, okay,
cool. Actually, education is a really contentious point in the industry. Everyone agrees that it would be awesome to educate all the fans. It was something that was talked a lot about 5 years ago here. Doing it or finding another way to do it, but ultimately, when you look at all the consumers out there, they really didn't care. I mean, you guys pirate stuff. Everyone pirates stuff. If you can't get HBO, you're gonna go pirate your Dexter or True Blood or whatever. Everyone does it. So what the industry realized it had to do, more important than education. Education is good, but the most important thing was to make sure that the industry could give consumers, anime fans, what they wanted to get. And it was pretty obvious if the anime fans were all downloading anime online the day after that it was released in Japan, well, that's what they wanted. And that's, you were talking about Crunchyroll like 6-7 years ago. A certain member of the industry got very angry at the mere mention of the name, but Crunchyroll has since then evolved into being one of the biggest, actually they are, as far as I know, the leading anime streaming site. They're a major licensor, they're a major source of revenue for the anime industry. And sites like Crunchyroll are the future of the anime industry. Everyone recognizes that, and a lot of the industry recognized it long before you actually saw it happening. Long before Crunchyroll became legal, people in the industry, people at Crunchyroll, people at Anime News Network, they're all talking about this. We need to be streaming online. This is what consumers want. But there's a lot of knocking on doors, trying to break down barriers and walls to get people to say, okay, this is, like, you can do this. Even people that in Japan that would recognize that this is the future, they don't necessarily want to do it right now, or they want someone else to try it first. I think last night I heard someone talking about, it might have been about Crunchyroll, trying to get licenses, and someone said, no one wants to be the first person to license to you. They all want to be the second. So the thing is that everyone wants someone else to take that first risk and make it possible. But it's not a coincidence that without knowing each other's plans, Anime News Network and Crunchyroll both started to legally stream, looked and tried to legally stream anime right around the same time. If we'd known what Crunchyroll was doing and how big they were going into it, we might not have bothered. They had a few more dollars in their bank book, their bank account than we did for that project. But yeah, a few. I put 6 figures into it, and you guys put 8.
That's pretty specific.
It's public knowledge. Well, your budget was public knowledge. But yeah, it was obvious that streaming anime is the future of the market. And it's the replacement for, not just for consumption, but also for discovery. Anime fans, you guys don't really want to buy DVDs most of the time to watch a show one time. And back when I was growing up as an anime fan, that was the only way to watch it. It was actually buy the bloody subbed VHS for $40 for 2 episodes. So I was paying $20 an episode. You guys, when you're paying, are maybe paying $2 an episode, but very often you don't want to pay for something to watch it once, so you're going to subscribe to Crunchyroll, subscribe to Funimation.com, Daisuke, whatever, and stream it. And then if you really, really like it, then you're going to buy the set and maybe some merchandise. And that's how it should be. You shouldn't be forced to spend a fortune to find out if you like the show. And I think the industry's finally getting to the point where it's through sites like Crunchyroll, Funimation, etc., are delivering stuff in a way you guys like, a way that's convenient, maybe not perfect, but it's getting there. And the awesome thing is that the revenue from streaming is actually starting to get impressive.
How many of you in here today get most of your anime, if not all of it, online? Can you raise your hand?
I think it'd be easier to ask how many of you don't.
Well, that's what I was going to do next.
Yeah.
How many of you actually get DVDs?
As your primary source.
Primary source. All right.
Wow.
And how many of you buy DVDs because you really like the show and want to collect it after the fact?
Ah, okay. So in that respect, internet streaming and downloadable material actually can drive DVD sales?
Oh, absolutely. That was the driving desire at companies like Funimation. I mean, Crunchyroll's business model is not built around DVD sales. The reason Funimation got into streaming, and the reason I was pushing everyone in the industry, you need to be doing this, and Justin Sudeikis made a really famous article about it, was that online is what's going to introduce people to these shows. And done right, online will create more sales of DVDs, not take away from it. One of the things I really want to see, and I think is still not being done right anywhere, guys are trying, but is that you should be watching a show. Let's say you're watching Naruto on some website or another, and maybe Crunchyroll, and right beside it there should be an ad for the Naruto DVD, the Naruto manga, and a Naruto plushie.
Well, let's give Keith a chance to respond to that.
So,
From Crunchyroll.
From Crunchyroll, going back to your statement about that little anecdote, in that woman's defense, that person's defense, and man's defense, whoever that was, suppose a woman, okay, lucky guys there. You know, we are like Beetlejuice, you say our name too many times, something will happen, but that's probably why she didn't want it to happen, but, so with Crunchyroll, I mean, we started, you know, around 2006, and that's when, you know, a lot of the fans were definitely on our site, but the industry was not necessarily on our side as well. But, you know, we came about because we, like Chris was saying, that we understood that there was a need out there with the advent of YouTube and Netflix, was starting to really take over the scene and starting to really gain some traction, and at which point it was like, this is the way that you know, the role of entertainment is going, and you know, just kind of sum it up really quickly. First of all, I'm a big hip hop fan. On the last Wale track, he said that what is it? Video killed the radio, and the internet slit the video's throat, essentially, and that's kind of like, you know, that's kind of like how the evolutionary process of entertainment seemed to be going. And so Crunchyroll and Viz, I think was at the time doing that, Netflix, Hulu, and I think the other player in the market was Juiced, all started to just kind of like get into this streaming field and try to like really focus on streaming content as fast as we can, as best as we can, and as soon as we can. And then, you know, it definitely evolved from there. And like around 2009, Crunchyroll decided to get rid of all of its illegal content, and with the funding with Venrock, the company that, excuse me, helped fund the small company called Apple and IBM. They felt that they, you know, saw some vision in Crunchyroll, and so they decided to invest in us, and then from there we went 100% legal. Dropped all of the legal content and went the full legal route. So, thank you.
That was actually January 1st, 2009.
January 1st, 2009. So as the clock ticked to midnight, we saw our traffic just go like this. But, you know, over time, people, you know, saw the need, and there were a lot of like hardcore fans that stuck with us from day one, and those are the guys that we really love. And you know, over time, it's definitely grown. We've been trying to. At the time, we had like 6 or 7 simulcasts, which is like less than 10%. And now we're close to about 80. At one point, we're 90% of the actual anime streaming from Japan on our site. And then right now, we're obviously sharing with Funimation and Daisuke and other players in the arena. But you know, it's the internet is growing so quickly and so fast, and the anime fans themselves, I think you guys can probably attest to as well, is that anime fans are very technologically savvy. Mm-hmm. Like they're very quick to jump on the new trends, the new ideas and concepts, and they're probably the more people who are on the forefront of, you know, pushing technology forward. And so as a result, it just made sense for a natural transition for anime to move to the internet. Going back to what you were saying is that we are actually planning on doing that, adding merchandise. I know Scripps College came out with a study saying that, or Scripps, the company that
Ohio University.
was maybe that one, but also the Scripps company that owns Food Network and HGTV said that they found that it's actually it made sense to actually add those items on because it helps propagate the industry and propel it forward. So they've been finding that with their their properties is moving forward. So it only makes sense for anime to do the same thing.
Just to interject, back when Crunchyroll made the decision to go from a technically illegal fan site to a licensee, January 1st, 2009, I was commissioned to write a story about that for a paper in Japan called the Yomiuri, the Daily Yomiuri. And so I interviewed, I don't know, were you on board at that time? Okay, so I interviewed, I think your bosses. Yeah, I think it was good. Via telephone. Anyway, at that time I said, how are you going to do this? Because all of the chatter on the internet was, well, if they start charging tomorrow for what was free yesterday, I'm not going to pay for it. It'll pop up somewhere, right? Somebody's gonna deliver the content, and I don't have to pay for it. And one of the things that the folks at Crunchyroll were telling me was that they believed they could create a community of like-minded fans, a community of people who could exchange ideas, who had the same passions, who could feel like part of a group rather than just isolated, atomized individuals downloading whatever they liked after midnight, wherever they were. And I wonder if you could talk, Keith, a little bit about that, because you're very much a part of that community creation. Keith hosts a live show at crunchyroll.com where people can comment, people can chime in, people can participate. How does that kind of mechanism work, and how did you develop that?
So I mean, Crunchyroll actually started off as a community of like-minded fans, like you mentioned, and we felt that that was like such an integral part of who we were and who we are that getting rid of that would be detrimental to the company as a whole. And so we definitely try to foster these types of discussions. And if you go to some other streaming sites, like for example Netflix or Hulu, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to talk about the latest episode with fans of, I don't know, with like True Blood or what's Game of Thrones. If that's. But I think on sites like Crunchyroll for sure, and Funimation and Daisuke, you can actually go to, you can watch the episode, and immediately after that, you can say, "Oh my God, did you just see what happened in episode 5, minute 13? That was the most unbelievable thing." And then people will just start responding, and you start to really develop these bonds. And we have a couple, love stories in the office from people who met online at Crunchyroll. So, so I mean, stuff like that does happen, and it's, again, it's that community that really built and helps bolster the content even further. And I know Chris can attest to how the news also does that as well. Like it just really, you can put something out there, but once you put it out there, I mean, it can either stagnate or it can grow. And the only way to make it grow is to really involve people.
Yeah. And you see that on Anime News Network. I mean, there'll be a press release that Anime News Network basically just reports on. And then there's like 123 comments. And the comments are, in many cases, much more interesting than the press release.
Yeah, especially if it's just a press release.
Yeah.
Ever since I got out of the actual journalism part myself and been doing other business, I actually sometimes help companies prepare their press releases and announcements. I'll tell them, like, this is what you have to do to make interest. One of the things I'm always talking about is how to maintain it after that initial announcement. So if you put out an announcement, something's going to happen, upcoming DVD release, whatever, and you put that out January 1st, and then the DVD releases on April 1st, and nothing happens in between A and B, then interest just drops. And one of the best ways to maintain interest is actually the community itself. Just get people talking. as long as they're talking, they are maintaining the interest for you and even building it. So yeah, community and the support of the community, the interest of the community, and the interaction with the community is immensely important. Aside from just maintaining interest, the interaction with the community is also one of the ways you learn what the community wants. Anime News Network, Crunchyroll, Funimation, we all spend a ton of time reading the kind of feedback that we get from our consumers, fans, and also trying to very often share what we're doing with you and get feedback on that. That's why we're all at these conventions. It's as much to promote ourselves to you, or rather what I meant to say is as much, not just to promote ourselves to you, but to interact with you and get a feeling of what you want back from you. I think I learn from anime fans when I'm at a convention. I learn from the fans way more than they learn from me. I can spend 8 hours up on stage talking to people, spewing to people, and then I can walk around the dealer's room and look at what people are wearing, what they're buying, talk to a few of them, listen to what they're getting excited about, and that gives me way more knowledge about the next 8 months of this industry. And that interaction is super important, especially if it's well used by the industry and that they interact back. And I think you guys appreciate it when the industry gets up here and has a conversation with you and shows that they're interested in what you think. And conventions are awesome. You can never get that really close feeling anywhere else. But online allows you to make that interaction 365 days a year with a lot more people. And that's why I'm a huge fan of doing things online. And I think that online communities are really what has carried this industry from tiny little thing in 1992 up to this massive thing in 2004, and then actually maintained it and rebuilt it after it crashed in 2005. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of what Chris was saying. We, at least ourselves at Crunchyroll, we spend about an hour a day at least reading forums, reading bug reports, reading complaints, reading requests. We even have dedicated threads for fans to add exactly what they want on Crunchyroll. And we just scour that list, and then we just start picking them off one by one. User X wanted this really obscure anime title from like 1987. Let's go after that. And then we go after that. And then, sometimes those ones really take off, but it's like, again, it's really based off the community. And we never would have known to get that one particular title if it wasn't for that 1 or 2 users who just really wanted it, was really vocal, and hunted us down everywhere we went asking when we would get one particular title. Just to echo again, just the community is such an integral part of developing an anime community that it's, to have, I guess any community really, to be without it is to kind of limit your growth potential.
I just want to interject. I mean, we're talking about community and how important that is to these websites. And not to belittle that at all, but there's also another aspect, and that's ease of use. And I think Crunchyroll really gets this, and one of the reasons they get it is that it's a company founded by engineers. But you were talking about that question you asked, or what the fan reaction might be when you talked to Kuhn at the launch. And like, well, if you're going to charge me tomorrow for what I can get free today, I'm just going to go find it free somewhere else. But yeah, sure, if you can't afford $5 a month, then maybe that's the right choice for you. But I'd rather put down my $5 a month, and I get a warm, fuzzy feeling from supporting the industry. But from a completely selfish point of view, I'm also not spending hours finding the right fan sub that's good quality, it's going to have a fast enough torrent, and then I have to do that for all 8 shows that I'm following this season. You know what? $5 a month to save me 10 hours of searching every week? Done.
what's interesting there is I actually live half or sometimes more than half of each year in Japan, in Tokyo. And so I've been able to watch on both sides of the world this kind of, to go back to what both of you are saying, this kind of aging up process. On the Western side, if you will, or the American side, it's that, you know, fans who are 14 or 15, they have lots of time, but not much disposable cash, right? So for them, you know, looking all over the place for a freebie online, maybe it's worth it, because they can't drop even the $5 that you just mentioned. But once you hit, what, 21, and you're starting to work, or you're at university and working, you don't have so much of that free time to mess around with, but you might have a little cash in your pocket to say, you know what, this is worth it.
Yeah.
I can get online, I can find a high quality subbed or dubbed version of this, and I don't have time to screw around looking for a freebie, especially one that's going to be cracked or screwed up.
Yeah,
right?
moreover, like you just with malware, spyware,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff that can really ruin your day and really ruin your hardware, which, you know, you tally that up at the end of the day, you might, you know, you're looking at a couple $1,000s, you know, over a course of time.
Wasted time.
Which is like wasted time, wasted money.
And what's interesting is on the Japan side, the aging up I've seen occur in the industry. I mean, as recently as 3 to 4 years ago, talking to a studio producer in Japan about options for online streaming was, after about 10 minutes, like talking to a brick wall. They're like, "Ah, so da ne, so desu, so desu ne." Just like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, that's pretty cool. Now let's go have dinner, right? There was nothing going on. And I'm afraid to say today, even today, if you visit a lot of the top producers' websites, they are circa 1994. There's nothing there, right? Maybe the company address in English at the bottom, you know, the chome and so on. That's it. So even today, it's quite slow, but people like Christopher and Keith, in a way, and what they've been trying to do is finally making headway in Japan. You now have Japanese sites. One of them is represented right down in the dealer's room here, daisuki.net, which is a site based in Japan, which is trying to provide streaming, new titles, etc., and engage the audience through the internet rather than DVD sales, etc. So there's actually movement on the Japanese side. It's kind of a very exciting time, because from my sort of perspective in the middle of the Pacific somewhere, on one side, the industry is finally getting it, slowly getting it,
Yeah.
and putting some money behind it and trusting that they'll see some revenues. And on the other side, there's an audience that's saying, as we've been talking about now, I want to be part of that community. I'm willing to pay X amount per month to get high quality material. Now, I didn't want this to be us talking at you, because we're talking about participation in community and so on. And you're here, and you're obviously a member of the community. So I want to open the floor a little bit now to you. What kinds of things would you like to see happening on the internet with anime and with these sites? What kind of questions do you have? You have, you know, people from Crunchyroll and from Anime News Network, easily two of the most visible, high-profile, global sites for anime in the world. What would you like to ask? What would you like to see? Yeah, go ahead.
So, like, when I was younger, I always watched, like, illegal stuff because I didn't know any better. Then when I grew up and I realized that, like, oh, these are, like, my favorite shows.
You're under arrest.
These are
Are you
my favorite
recording?
shows, and I'm not giving them any money, and they're poor as hell. So then after that, I started using, like, Hulu and Crunchyroll and stuff like that. But then that's only for anime. As far as, like, manga is concerned, like,
partners to harmonize a beautiful project like that, and but you know, hopefully that's something that'll come to fruition, because you know they definitely helped blaze the trail forward, and you know I think they struck a gold mine with that idea of, like, again, House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, I think so.
I think this topic's really interesting. I'm a master's student. I wrote a paper on looking at digital media, how it's affecting manga and anime. And I did find an interesting comparison between how manga is dealing with it and how anime is dealing with it. And I read that a lot of big publishers in Japan, like Kodansha, like Shueisha, they see publishing more as, we're putting something on paper, putting it online is not publishing. So I'm really impressed by what Crunchyroll has done. I've read a lot about you guys, and that's an example I could use in my papers because you guys have done, as you said, ease of use. You've made it easy to use. You are the competition for the pirated sites, and because you're easier to use, that's what brings customers over. And so I think it's really interesting because I feel like in the piracy versus or I feel like in the debate, it often gets framed as piracy versus fair use, or people just buying, or people wanting for free versus people willing to pay. But I think you guys emphasize how important it is to offer a good product that attracts consumers. And so I think this is going to be a really big, well, as you said, this will be a huge issue in the future. It's just digital, how the internet is changing how we distribute things and how people go into things. And I think it's great that Crunchyroll has done what it has done for anime, and I hope manga can figure out some solution, because it is kind of worrying, just because it seems like the Japanese publishers really aren't on board, but it seems like with Crunchyroll, the producers of anime are more on board. And do you have would you have any suggestions for how a manga site would do this? Because I've looked at JManga, and then I've looked at one of the big aggregators, and you can see the interface of the aggregator site. You can see why someone would want to go there instead of wanting to go to JManga. And so,
I mean, probably if they could find a way for ease of access for maybe the use of a Kindle or Nook, that would make things a lot ease their concerns. But in the very beginning of licensing, our licensing team in Japan, when we first started, they, this guy Vince, he just went to literally every single door, and he got the door slammed in his face. He just got these 3-hour lectures about how he was just the white devil. He just got demolished. But eventually, over time, it's just trying to. They started warming up to him, and now we were able to, really work tightly with these guys. And, I think that's hopefully where we can, take these, work with manga publishers, and hopefully someone will be able to really help blaze that trail as well.
I think it's also important to add here a cultural insight, in that even today, Japan is still, in terms of text, very heavily a print-based culture. As many of you might know, if you go to a Japanese newspaper website, unlike an English language newspaper, you don't have all the articles. There are links to maybe a couple of lead stories, and that's it. And that's because they know that they have enough print subscribers who are reading the newspaper that just teasing you is enough. And they can sell enough newspapers. American newspapers can't do that, right? So it's still a culture that can count on a relatively large print consumer.
Yeah, that's the sense I got in my research. But I hope the progress that you guys have made in anime can contribute and sort of help the future of manga. Good job.
Thank you so much. Definitely appreciate it.
Right. So one of the things that I always kind of disliked with the internet is a lot of streaming sites. Normally I always like my own copy. So if I get DVDs, I'll back them up digitally or something. So what I would like, would this ever be possible, a micro to macro transaction system where you could download for 10 cents the first episode of any of the animes that you offer, and what it would do is it would step up. So by the time you get halfway through the series, you would have paid half the cost of the series as if you had gotten the DVD set, except there would be a slight discount since it's digitally distributed and it wouldn't cost as much to get it out to you. Once you reach the halfway part, you have to buy the whole series. You can't just keep on mooching off and getting the discount. So you go 10 cents, 20 cents, 50 cents, $1, up to 2, 5, 10, and then it would stop, and then you'd buy the whole thing. Also, if you bought the whole series digitally through a download system, the extra icing on the cake that would really make the system effective would be if you could get a discount voucher for the DVD if you bought the whole series digitally, which would definitely, or the Blu-ray edition through Amazon, which would pretty much then guarantee almost a sale throughout the whole system.
That's a very well thought out business plan. Are you working for another streaming site? Because that sounds like a fantastic.
And if you're worried about having videos, like pirated from it, what you could do is steal a page from Steam, and what you have is just a quick video format at the beginning, where you encode it. It'd be similar to the encoding on Blu-ray with the AACS or the D++ stuff, but you have just a quick executable program that your users would install on their system that would run at startup, and then would enable them to run them. And as long as they're hooked up quickly to the internet, they could have Blu-ray quality, and they wouldn't have to worry about bandwidth and taking up other things.
Okay, I think these are excellent points, but I think we should probably let other people ask some questions before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to transform the...
Yeah, but I guess quickly to address that, I think, not speaking on, I guess I can't speak on behalf of like Funimation and Aniplex and NIS and the groups that Sentai that make DVDs. I think their main concern is that if you do that, their DVD sales will drop, and that kind of like degrades their profit. So that for a lot of DVDs now, they'll do like you have DVD, Blu-ray, and digital download, which allows you to have all those into one package. So maybe, I mean, I can't speak for them, like I said, but maybe that's their thought process as to why something like that hasn't necessarily arisen yet. But other than that, I think it's a very well thought out macro process. So thank you for that.
I think that was a fantastic idea. Now, first,
several job offers after
I know.
first, I just want to say thank you. I've been a Crunchyroll premium member now for about 2 years, and it's absolutely fantastic service.
Thank you so much.
I stream anime on my phone pretty much every day at work on a lunch break. So, awesome. Yeah. And I guess my question is, if you look at the way sort of the music industry went, there's a huge amount of homogeny between the content of all. If you go with Spotify or Rdio or Google Play Music All Access, which is the worst name for an app ever, but you can pretty much go to any of these applications or sites and get the same content. Where it seems like if I want to watch Steins Gate, I have to go to Hulu, and if I want to watch certain mostly a lot of Funimation stuff, I have to go to Hulu. Crunchyroll has a lot of what's currently being aired in Japan, but maybe not a huge collection of some older animes that I'd like to see. So I guess I know the licensing is a bit more complex, but I guess the question is it going to take time and also the failure of certain platforms before we can get sort of a homogeneous experience from a site like Crunchyroll, or is it really just a matter of keep hammering out the licensing and keep pushing the profit part of it?
I think it's mostly coming down to hammering out the licensing, finding a way that, and convincing the partners in Japan that the more platforms you have it on, especially for the back catalog stuff, it's not going to hurt your profit. It'll only increase visibility. And like Chris was talking about, it helps build a community. The more you put it out there, the more you kind of stimulate it, the more attention it'll get. And I think trying to convince that, and as also Roland was saying, it's like a lot of so desu. Ma ne. I mean, like a lot of that.
Affectionately.
Yeah. And I can say it in Japanese.
You can do that.
Yeah. But it'll just take like a little bit of time to hammer that out, and I think eventually, like, hopefully, because I definitely agree. Like your ideas, kind of the harmony of like what the three of us are talking about, and maybe one day we can get to that point where it's just like a bunch of platforms where people can just use and access all the content that they want anytime, anywhere. So.
I think for catalog, You're definitely going to see that. Not too distant future. Already you're seeing some titles in multiple places. I mean, Funimation has something, a motto internally about, that they call Funimation Everywhere. I think the idea there is that they want their content everywhere. So it's, and most companies realize that catalog should just be everywhere. I mean, there are just contractual barriers that need to be broken down. And there's also like, well, anime is put out in a way that means like you have to pay for it to get it on your service first. So Funimation is going to hold it back till you make them the right offer to get it on your service, which is a little different from the way music works. But for brand new content, I don't think you're going to see that too often. You're going to see it fairly often, but it's not going to happen all the time, because on the side of a company like Crunchyroll, just like Netflix is doing with their originals, there's a big desire, for obvious reasons, to be kind of exclusive with this title. If I have the #1 title of the season, and I'm the only person that has it, well, that's going to bring more users to my site. So Crunchyroll is going to go to Japan and say, I'll give you more money if you don't give it to the other guy. So for catalog content, you're going to start seeing it in more and more places. And as a consumer myself, I want to have everything everywhere so that I can go to the platform I like and just watch everything. But for brand new content, unfortunately, there's a competition that works the other way for that.
Great. Next.
Hello.
Hey.
I've enjoyed watching anime online as well as watching anime on television. You know, just sitting on a couch, keeping the feet up, eating Doritos, etc. What can we do as the community to try to convince more American networks to show more anime, similar to how Toonami's done it? Or is the television watching community not connected enough for that to happen?
I think we were just talking about this last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you must have been like right next to us, because we were just talking about this, about how to make, I guess, anime like cool or like in the mainstream. Very much like video games and American comic books, like Batman, Superman, the Iron Man, Adventure series. All of a sudden, everyone wants to become an otaku, a nerd, and a geek. A lot of us have been those three, any one of those three, or all three in our entire lives, and so now I guess geek is a new chic, and I guess trying to get maybe anime into that same sphere might might help us get to that high level prime time, Toonami time.
I'll tell you something really interesting about TV networks and about Cartoon Network in particular, and why there's less anime on Cartoon Network today than there was a couple of years ago. For starters, good anime gets better ratings than the shows that Cartoon Network has replaced anime with, and they know that. And they actually internally love anime, but it's a business decision. And you'd think, well, that's a stupid business decision. A TV network should put on the show that has the most viewers, right? No, they should put on the show that's going to bring them the most money. And if they own the show, then they're going to make money off of DVD sales, merchandise sales, blah, 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 blah. So a shitty show that has half the viewers of an anime might make them 5 times as much money as that anime. And that's one of the problems. And my personal opinion, I sit on my couch watching TV, while watching my screen with my bag of Doritos too. The only difference is my screen is not hooked up to a cable network, it's hooked up to my PS3, and I'm watching it on the Funimation app. I wish I was watching it on the Funimation app. I'm watching it on the Crunchyroll app, and I'm watching it on Netflix. I think TV's dead, personally.
You can quote Chris on that, by the way.
Go for it.
One quick thing too about licensing, and Keith was talking about knocking on people's doors. You've knocked on people's doors in Japan as well. One thing about anime licensing that sometimes is difficult for Americans to understand, because we think, if you license something made by Warner Brothers, all you have to do is go to Warner Brothers and convince them that you want to buy the license. In Japan, and some of you may know this by reading the fine print on your DVDs or on the credits, there are often 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 different anime studios and or television networks that own the rights to a specific title. So you may get 3 or 4 of them to sort of agree, and then 5, 6, and 7, they're not agreeing, or they're not giving you an answer at all. So you don't get the license until you get everyone on board. Chris was referring to, you know, having, even within a given company, one guy agrees to it, but everybody has to agree to it. So there's some of this, which is a cultural characteristic of Japan that persists, which is the consensus culture, as we say in English, where everybody has to be on board or nobody's on board. So that creates an additional level of, additional challenge to anyone who's trying to license these titles from Japan. So to go back to Chris's comments about these TV networks, you think, wow, you know, why don't you get this program? It's more popular, but it may not bring in more money, and if it takes that much effort and or cash just to get the license, is it worth it? Or create your own show in-house? I think that's a part of it as well.
I was just involved in a discussion that involved Cartoon Network and a really popular anime that the company that owns the anime really wants to have on Cartoon Network. They don't want a lot of money from Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network loves the anime, and they're like, oh, we'd love to put this on the show, on the network, but we don't have an open spot. We've got X number of spots for anime, and the contracts are long-term filled to fill these spots. So, I mean, we're not going to take off our big money show that's not got the ratings but sells the merchandise to put in the anime, because we've already got the lost leader animes that bring in viewers filling these spots, and that's it.
With all these like streaming sites, do you see in the future that these companies will see each other as like partners or like collaborators, all providing content for the audience? Or do you see them all just seeing each other as enemies, just like all the competition, like fierce competition with all the different streaming sites?
Yeah, these two guys actually hate each other.
That's why Roland's in the middle.
That's why
The anime industry is actually really cooperative. I mean, there are well-documented and unknown friction between certain companies at any given time. I mean, pretty much everyone knows that Funimation and Section 23 are suing the hell out of each other right now, so they don't cooperate on a daily basis. For a long time, it was well understood that Funimation did not like Crunchyroll, but right now, you're starting to see more and more working together. Everyone in the anime industry, well, a huge part of the people that work in this industry do it because we love this industry, we love the content, and it's a fairly small industry, so we all understand that it's in our best interest to make sure the industry succeeds and works. And in many times, the best thing to do is to actually help out the competition. A healthy industry is better right now for everyone. Maybe when this is an $18 billion a year industry in the United States, then they can start trying to beat the shit out of each other again. But for now, generally it's just better to cooperate. So the anime industry is actually very, very friendly.
Going back to the discussion about TV being dead and whatnot, love what Crunchyroll does, love having it on PS3. Biggest problem with it though is PS3 is pretty bulky. When I come to a convention, that don't necessarily like dragging it, leaving it in a hotel in a seating area. I'd like to have it on something like 3DS or Vita. Can we be seeing this anytime soon? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just announced earlier today at the Crunchyroll panel that the PS Vita app will be coming out soon. But if you have any iOS, Android, Windows phone, you can watch it on there. Tablets, it all works as well. If you're at home, any set-top box, from Boxy to Roku, smart TVs, WD Live as well. Smart TVs like Samsung, Google, Vizio, Xbox, Apple TV, PS3. So those are primarily the devices that we're all on, as well as the main website. So we're trying to hit. Ouya is the other one. I think. Yeah.
I was in the gym of my hotel this morning watching anime on my phone while I worked out.
Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely trying to hit all the all the different avenues because we're trying to live up to our slogan of anytime, anywhere. So we'll definitely keep that in mind for Vita and what was the other one?
3DS.
3DS. Okay. And we'll do our best to make that happen. Thank you.
I think we've run, sadly, short of time here, folks. I know some of you still have questions. These gentlemen are here at the convention, so you can actually speak to them as well outside of this panel. As I said at the beginning, we wanted to talk about how things have changed online in the anime industry and also what's happening now. And I think now is a very, very exciting time. I would encourage all of you, not only on Anime News Network and Crunchyroll, but whenever you're online, to communicate your likes and dislikes. Even in Japan, there are people at these studios who try to read what people are saying in English to find out what fans like or dislike or want or don't want. It's important to communicate those things when you're online and in that community, that people are listening, especially now, I think more so than ever before. Christopher Macdonald, Anime News Network, Keith Kawamura from Crunchyroll.com. My name is Roland Kelts. This book is called JapanAmerica. It's for sale downstairs at Peter S. Beagle's booth, Last Unicorn booth right near the entrance, and I'll be down there to sign copies right after the panel. I want to thank you all for coming. Like I said, these guys are here, I'm here, so if you have more questions, come talk to us, okay? Thank you very much for
Thank you very much, guys.